Hello everyone, and welcome to Experiential Game Reviews. In this episode, I'll be discussing Valkyrie Profile 2, Silmeria. Valkyrie Profile 2 was developed by Tri-Ace and published by Square Enix in 2006. The first thing you'll notice about this game is that its presentation is amazing. The game's normal graphics and cutscenes look great, especially for the time. It also includes some high-quality FMV that was characteristic of Square during this period. All of the areas in the game are varied with their own unique graphical style. Although it does contain a stereotypical volcano level, most of the areas have very interesting themes, and it gets even more inventive towards the end of the game. Most games of this genre present a narrative, and Valkyrie Profile 2 does this as well. The game's story is good, but can be very confusing to newer players. It's the kind of story that you only fully understand your second time through after you've already seen the end. The driving force behind Valkyrie Profile 2 is the game's unique combat and item systems. The game's difficulty is high enough to keep things fun, and make strengthening one's characters relevant. The game's difficulty can even be increased to ridiculous levels by beating it multiple times. Everything kills you in one hit on 50 crystal mode. Let's get into some of the basics of the combat system. Battles are not random, and enemies can be seen and interacted with outside of battle. Once in battle, you can use a party of up to 4 characters to defeat the monsters. Valkyrie Profile 2 utilizes a hybrid, turn-based, real-time battle system. Enemies will move in real time, but only as the player does. If you stand still, so do they. Enemy attack ranges are shown as red zones on the field, and enemies will attack if a player enters this zone. Of course, you can retaliate. Each of the 4 characters in a player's party are bound to one of the shape buttons, and pressing that button will cause that character to attack. It's usually wise to dash behind the enemies before attacking. Each of the monsters has various breakable parts, and severing these will often result in an item drop. This can also disable certain attacks or kill an enemy entirely depending on which part was broken. Certain sections of armor on some enemies can be broken but will not damage the monster's HP pool. There's a chance to enter break mode upon breaking off any part of an enemy. This will allow continuous attacks without using AP. If you still have AP left after killing a monster, you can keep attacking it to try to break off more parts. Battles end when the leader enemy is killed, and if this happens quickly enough, it will result in a bonus item. An aspect of the combat system that facilitates strategy is the ability to break your characters off into separate teams. This can be very useful, especially on the larger bosses who will not let you just walk around them. The game also does include some flashier, soul crush attacks. These look very cool, but have very long animations. Thankfully, most of the sequence can be skipped to save time if you wish. Unfortunately, these attacks cannot break parts off of monsters, making it wise to use them sparingly. On an only slightly related note, the character you see attacking here is named Crad. He's completely irrelevant to the game's story, but he has an awesome flipping attack, which is really fun to use. The game has a lot of neat details, but sometimes does a poor job of explaining itself. This can make it difficult for players to figure out what the hell to do. The game's difficulty is also based on proper utilization of certain game mechanics, so this can make things very difficult if you try the wrong strategies first. Take these enemies for instance. These wasp nests are completely immune to physical damage and can only be damaged by elemental attacks or magic. If you don't know this, you may not have a mage or a way of dealing elemental damage with any of your characters. On top of this, these enemies can create more versions of themselves, which can get kind of annoying. It's also relatively easy to end up in situations where you don't deal very much damage at all during a first playthrough. It's not that the game doesn't give you ways to be powerful, the really good items are just difficult to find or acquire. This ends up being a good thing since it can be very fun to go back and dominate enemies who were previously challenging or annoying to defeat. The items obtained by breaking off parts of monsters can be equipped to characters as accessories. Each item has an associated color and rune. Putting together the correct combination of these will allow your characters to learn skills that assist in battle. The game will provide a list of rune words that the player has discovered, so you don't have to memorize these. Making proper utilization of these skills is a big part of the strategy involved. The skills are interesting and varied, and most are at least situationally useful. However, some of the skill descriptions are quite misleading. In addition to the equipment and skill systems, Valkyrie Profile 2 offers another unique class of items known as seal stones. With these, players can further buff their party or screw enemies over with negative effects. I had intended to describe this system in greater detail, however this review is already running a bit long, so here are seal stones in 20 seconds. Take it out of a shell and put it in your bag, now it affects you. Take it to a dais and put it there, now it affects the enemies. Take it to a spring and release it, now you can use it anywhere. There are tons of seal stones and they all have various effects. Also, they don't work in divinity voids. That took forever. Have patience, Red Hat guy, there's still more to say about the combat system. The combat system of Valkyrie Profile 2 is innovative, but it's not perfect, and there are various ways in which the AI can be abused. Like here, where you can walk in a circle around enemies with a low turning radius to restore your AP before attacking. It's also possible to bait enemies into attacking a specific character by dashing into their attack ranges. Although possibly not intended, these things just end up making the game more fun. And all in all, the game is extremely stable. Honestly, it's way harder to come up with criticisms of this game than it is to come up with things to praise about it. Although it's almost perfect for what it is, that obviously isn't everyone's favorite thing because it's not tremendously popular. That being said, Valkyrie Profile 2 is a masterpiece, and if you like games like this, you owe it to yourself to play it.